Evolve 360, a holistic approach to life, is an exploration of learning through experience to transform individually and culturally as a whole by taking a 360-degree look at our quality of life, including the limiting beliefs, worn-out paradigms, and destructive habits that have led us to where we are today, and to instead create or revolutionize a new life vision that brings greater peace, appreciation, fulfillment, clarity, happiness, and joy as we ultimately evolve. So in our last episode, Shelley and I discussed the ego and how the idea fake it till you make it is an old belief that has served its time. In this episode, we're going to build on that newer idea of how becoming your authentic self requires the self-esteem to follow your true inner voice that is aligned with your sacred contracts. We will also introduce another of the 4 universal archetypes that shines the light on why we choose to be disempowered and how developing your self-esteem and soul esteem will help you become an empowered individual. So if you haven't guessed, today's episode is about power and how we use it and how we lose it. So let's dive in. Welcome to the Evolve 360 Shelley Shell Show with hosts
Cheli Grace
and Shelley Devine. Hey, soul sister, how you doing?
Oh my gosh,
I'm doing power red there.
I'm wearing my power red because it is a fiery episode we have here for everybody today. As I was going through the notes, and I'm thinking we could talk about this for a long time.
Definitely.
A long time, but I'm doing great. In fact, I just wanted to share with you guys that I, like everybody else, has been quarantining, and slowly we're opening up. But during this time, I've got into Netflix, and I really like good series. So I said to my husband, why don't we just watch the Sopranos again? So there we were watching the Sopranos. And as we were working on this yesterday, I saw an episode last night, and it was so on point about power. So just think about Tony and his crew, this other crew, and there they are negotiating things, and everything is going to be great. They're going to get up and shake hands. And all of a sudden, somebody who was the mediator brings up a past situation that really was a power struggle with all of them. And what happens? Everybody blows up. The guy that they were trying to negotiate with totally says, I think it was Phil, because Tony's cousin had shot Phil's brother, and there they were. And all of a sudden, Phil's like, no deal. And they all walk out because they had gone, and instead of living in the moment, they had gone back to the past and totally relived and recharged a power situation that happened, and it was all gone. So bummer. This episode is just so intense. I wore my red, and it's about our power, how we use it, how we give it away, how we negotiate it. And woo, I'm just on fire today.
Cool.
So let's start like we always do. And you ready, Shell? We're going to set an intention for today.
Yeah, set an intention, girl.
The intention for our show and the intention that we want to set for all of you is that thoughts have great power. And the more that you hang on to a particular thought, the more power you invest in that. Positive thoughts give us energy and strength, and negative ones rob us and make us feel tired and strained. We are by nature positive, and we need to be positive. I know right now it's very hard, but if you can just every day think of one positive thing in your life, that helps you anchor that energy, and it helps you move forward. So let's think about that. And let's just jump right in with power.
Sounds good, baby. I'm like, wow, power. Where do you feel powerful and where do you don't? Like there's been so many instances in my life where I felt really empowered, and then I would feel like I'm just getting into like a groove, and then rug ripped, things, from external forces being ripped out from underneath of me. And then I felt completely disempowered. Like completely like disempowered, like, now what do I do? And this comes into survival, like, survival stuff, where we end up feeling empowered. Maybe we're, trugging along, things are going good. We got a roof over our head. We got maybe, a girlfriend or a boyfriend. We're happy in a relationship. And then all of a sudden something blows up, like in The Sopranos, something from the past comes in, boom. And you're like, where did that come from? Where did that come from? But I think it's
true, because power.
Yeah, go.
Negotiating with our relationships.
Yeah, like our prostitute, which we talked about before, and how we negotiate our power, and do we want to be in the past or the present or in the now? The other thing too about power is it involves change. And we often get afraid afraid to move forward, like these times now, afraid to move forward. There's a lot of uncertainty.
There is a lot of uncertainty.
Maybe our jobs are changing and we're resisting that. These are all the triggers, the trigger signs of change and of our power of becoming empowered versus disempowered. And some people might currently feel a bit disempowered because of the current climate that's going on with this, global pandemic that's going on.
Right. Exactly. And your relationship to that, of how you show up, are you having negative thoughts, the woe is me, you're sabotaging yourself.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, like we had talked about in episodes before this, that something comes into your life and there's your ego, and then you sabotage yourself with your power center, you give it away. Or this opportunity that comes in because of your fear, all of a sudden you're like, well, I can't do that, or that's not my status. And it might be a situation that it's going to take you down a whole new road that's really beautiful.
Yeah.
That's really beautiful.
And you resist it. You
totally
actually resist it. And you're like, why, and you sometimes aren't aware why you do that. The whole thing is becoming empowered and aware of why you do the things that you do, and who's driving the reins, like who's got your power. Where is your power? Are you giving it away to someone else, and are they speaking for you? Are they doing, are you just living by what they say, or is it by your own internal voice that is saying, this is how I want to live my life? And
by your choices.
Yeah, by your choices. So we're going to introduce the Saboteur, which Shelley just mentioned. And the Saboteur is all about, this is one of our survival archetypes. And all these archetypes are what do I want to say? They're not, they're just energy. No, they're just energy. They're neutral. They're neutral. They don't it's not like they're going to have emotions towards you and say, oh, you're a bad kid or you're a good kid. They're neutral. They have light and shadow aspects. So the thing about the Saboteur, and it's one of our 4 survival, meaning when I say survival or core archetypes, these are archetypes that are universal throughout humanity. Everybody on the globe has to deal with this particular archetype for their own survival needs. And what I mean by survival is, keeping a roof over your head, being able to, work in the world and fend for yourself and take care of
food, shelter, and clothing.
Food, shelter, and clothing. Exactly. That's the survival.
Food, shelter, and clothing. That's survival.
Yeah.
And we all have the 4 core.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we discussed the prostitute, how we sell our power basically. And this one is how we kind of abort our power, or we prevent our creativity or natural process of enlightenment from happening. And because we're terrified of being empowered, because there's so much responsibility that goes with it. And that's the bottom line. That's all there is about power. And we can find it on all levels.
Totally, totally. And power is all about relationships. And the thing is that a lot of time it's tribal. We talked about our beliefs, you know, that little voice in your head, like you're listening to your mom and dad or your grandparents or somebody in it's ancestral. It's like, you can't really do that, you know, that kind of a thing. So it's tribal. It's down towards our lower chakras that we're going to be talking about later.
Yeah.
It's, you know, Carolyn Myss calls it your power centers, and Shelley and I are going to go into that towards the end of this segment so that you kind of tag in and know.
You could get a feel for it in your body because your body is a great guidance tool. What Shelley's talking about is your energetic system. And it's a great navigation system, or like, you know, a GPS, because you can use the feelings, the little nuances in your body to say, to perk you up, to alert you to, oh, that doesn't feel right, because it will happen in a certain area in your body. And some of these archetypes, they'll show up in those areas too. You know?
And I'll give you a very clear story. For instance, let's say that your girlfriend or, you know, your friend calls you up and you're really overextended with your, you know, your job, your family, your kids, whatever you have going on in your life. And all of a sudden, this friend always has a way of manipulating you. And there you are. I know, right? Manipulation.
Yeah.
You want to say no. You called your other friend and said, I'm not going to do this. I'm not going to pitch in to do, maybe it's volunteer work or something that she wants you to do. Help her move, help her paint her house. And she calls you and she negotiates your power. And what happens? You give your power away to her and you're like, okay, I'll be there Saturday at 9. And you hang up. And all of a sudden you feel it in your body. Right? I always feel it in my gut. It's like, oh.
Yep. Well, that's the saboteur. Typically you'll feel that in your gut. Typically you'll feel it in your gut. And it's like, no. Your body's saying no, and you're not listening to your intuition of what you really probably want, how you would rather or prefer to spend your time. And you're negotiating that. And one of the things that this is the bank account thing that Shelley's been talking about right along in all our episodes, is you're spending your energy by letting it leak that way, or a thread of it going that way. So when you're at home, you kind of, you know, when you're, maybe if you have kids or your husband or your wife or even your job or whatever, it takes your attention away from that, because you got, you know, so much you got some like, I got this thing I gotta do, right?
Yes,
I don't want to do
you're thinking about it.
And it's like going down the wrong path, and it's keeping you from your empowerment of doing the things that you really want to do. And sometimes it's we do it ourselves by not being able to say no, for one.
Exactly.
The other way is, you know, we might even do it because we might be avoiding our own empowerment, you know, to be or to do something that, because it might be happening too fast. Like, say you're in a position of you know, like what we're doing right now, say in this instance, okay, just, you know, like we're starting this podcast, right? And everything's going really good. And it's like, we're going down, like, yeah, it's really good. But in the past, when I've tried to, you know, maybe partner with somebody else to do something, nothing got done. And it's like, why? And it was like the other person might not be at the same place. And they're like, they have all the tools, but they don't want to empower themselves in that way.
Because of fear.
Because of fear.
Fear is that
the work.
Yeah.
And because of the work that it's going to take. And there's so many like issues about power. Like, it takes a lot of responsibility. It takes work.
Totally.
It takes time. And it's like, where are you going to invest that time? So back to my long story short, when you're saying, like, oh, I don't want to go with my friend and help her move.
No, I really don't. And you even practice it in the mirror.
And you say yes, you just spent some of your energy money. Totally.
Yes. It's like, and think about, we talked about the blow dryer. And, plugging it into all your outlets, and all of a sudden, your outlets don't work because you're totally expended. Yeah. You totally just, and I love the way Carolyn Myss puts it. She's like, your $100 a day in power in your bank account. Yeah. And she's got this great story about that. And, I think about it as like an energy, like I'm plugging in all of my appliances, and all of a sudden my refrigerator doesn't work because I've depleted all my power. Just think of you've got to, and we're going to teach you these tools to be able to empower yourself, to be able to say no to your girlfriend with love and grace, and she'll still love you. We all think about, gosh, if I say no to Shelley because she wants me to go and help her move, she's not going to like me. And we like to be liked and valued and loved.
Yeah.
But we've got to think about us and how we're using our power.
Yeah, and absolutely.
And we need to live in the present right now, because you don't want your power to be living, 5 or 10 years ago. We've all gone through stuff.
Oh man, mine's been in the past. My power's been in the past, and in the future, worried for the future.
Right.
Concerned, resolving my past, and then being in my, and then worried about what's my future going to be like, instead of being in the present. And it's really, I have to empathize with people, because this is not easy work to do, it's tremendously difficult, especially when you have that kind of mind muck, and you've had something, a serious, upheaval in your life, say a divorce or an illness or a death, and it just changes your life like that, and you're like, I didn't see that coming. That's the rug getting ripped out. I didn't see that coming. So you could be on that path of feeling, especially now. I mean, I know people who are business owners, and they love what they do, and they're happy with what they do, and now all of a sudden their jobs and their businesses, their babies, like their business are their babies, and they're like, well, that business is gonna flop. You can't. I don't have a.
You have no control over it. Which
I have no, no control.
And you've invested your time, your energy, your life savings, thinking about that being your retirement.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, you're like drowning. You're just like dog pedaling just to stay afloat.
Yeah. So, and the best way to deal with those situations is to, listen to what's going on inside you, and going in and saying, okay, what are the things that weren't working during that time, and how can I improve the situation now? And then, if you have to pull it, where else am I creative? Or is it, like we've said before, is there something else that I could be doing? Or maybe I should just be resting.
Right.
Maybe I should just be breathing. That's all, and enjoying my family, or whatever it is that is in front of me in this moment.
I totally agree with you. And many times when we stop, I know what happened to me. This was birthed out of this time that we've had, this podcast, because we had time to think. We had time to just slow down to a crawl. Because I know for a fact, and I know you too, Shell, we were going a million miles an hour.
Oh, man, back and forth to Boston,
I know,
like
right?
a lot.
But you quiet down your mind, and then things start coming up.
Yeah.
Feelings start coming up of things that you can tap into creatively to help you move on. But it's how you're investing your power on a daily basis. And the best advice that we both can give everybody is to live in the present moment.
Absolutely. Because that's where you're going to find all your power.
Yes.
Individually, you'll find all of your power. And the big thing too is the other thing about power is if you're leaking your power elsewhere, or if you're allowing somebody to, this is where the power of choice comes in. If you're allowing somebody to choose for you constantly, you're probably most likely, sadly, a very disempowered person, and feel not probably that great about yourself.
Right.
You have to be in a position, your own empowerment is about being able to make choices for yourself and stand beside them. And that's another aspect of the saboteur, is how we might not do that.
And that comes along with self-esteem.
Absolutely. And
With
soul
self-esteem
esteem.
and
Soul
soul-esteem.
esteem. Yeah.
And
Yeah.
soul esteem. But power, it starts when you're small, like when you're two, that, like if you have kids and like the terrible twos, and
Exactly.
then from there, we start finding our own identity. And then we start cutting back from our tribe, from our familiar, from our peer groups. And like we said earlier, a lot of times it happens when we have a catastrophe happen in our lives. We go through a divorce, a loss, a loss, whatever that loss is. It could be your marriage, your business, your partner, a death of a family member. And then it's something that disempowers you. And then you have to start, building back up with, it's a situation, like she said, the rug is pulled out from under you, and how are you going to then come back out of it with richer lessons, and with, and it's very hard. It's something that doesn't happen overnight, and you have to be gentle with yourself.
Yeah. I can remember, do you remember this back in the day, self-esteem? Oh, you have a low self-esteem.
Yes.
It was such a negative connotation, I guess. And I mean, I can remember, and then when we started with Carolyn and she talked about self-esteem and soul esteem, it's like you're constantly developing it your entire life. There's stages, like Shelley had mentioned at the beginning, there's stages. When you're a 2-year-old, you learn to say, no, mom, I'm not doing, like, no, like, no.
Then when you're a teenager, it comes back.
Yeah. And then the teenager does come back. No, I'm not doing that again. But basically it's you go through stages throughout the entirety of your life to build self-esteem, but now you take it to another level and bring it. And that's what I think, what's happening globally now because of this pandemic, it's requiring us to develop not just the self-esteem, but the soul esteem, to step into our authentic selves and be who we truly are, to
work together.
Yes.
And I heard a news reporter today on one of the news channels say, we're all of us have this pandemic. Why don't we work together to create a cure? Let everybody create together. But then again, and we've got a hot show for you in July. But again, it's the power plays. It's who wants
power plays between countries, and how and how this country has sabotaged itself. That's a whole other.
And
we're going to do this in July. We're going to do this in July.
And the archetype that this country was always seen as, but this is what we're talking about. We're moving into more of a collective consciousness. What happens to me happens to you. Yes. And we're moving forward in that, because we're not isolated from the world. We're all together. And what better? It's been a very difficult lesson, but what a lesson from all of us being in this situation. All of us.
Yeah, I just love what you just said there. What happens to me happens to you.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's good. That's rich. I mean, that is so, that's right up with, the chakra system, the first chakra, you're going in red, and it's all is one. We're all one. We're all experiencing this. Right. And we have to own it, own our responsibility. And somehow we manifested this together, even though we weren't the scientists maybe behind doing whatever, but our thoughts, which Shelley talked about at the beginning when we sent the intention, our thoughts, even though we might not act on them, they do have power. And how I think of it is they have power in our cell tissue. For me, I know this firsthand. I was in my past a lot. It hurt my brain. It hurt my head. It caused some problems for me physically. And that's because I wasn't in the present moment. And I could not, this is another part of the saboteur. I could not probably, I mean, forgiveness is part of the saboteur. It's one of its hardest tools. It likes to not forgive. It would prefer on a group level to blame, but on an individual, it shines accountability and responsibility. And our thoughts have great power in creating if we put our emotion behind it, and we may be unconscious about that. And yes, and when you combine the two, I mean, you could be wreaking havoc in your life, and this is how you lose power. Right. Because you're unconsciously creating in your individual life, just your little micro, what's around you, in your work, your family, the relationships you interact, but that expands because if it's in the collective, like Shelley was talking about, if there's enough in the collective, then the hologram of what we see on the globe is what happens. Right. And I mean, that might be a little too deep for everybody, but that's where we need a wake-up call. You know, when I gotta just make a point about Carolyn because she's freaking awesome. I remember when we were down, we had to have been in Chicago. This had to have been in Chicago, maybe one of our last, like getting towards the end of it, our training with her. And I remember literally a dream. And I think you even came to me and said, was there something? And her screaming, like not really screaming, but I felt like her saying, wake up.
That was your dream.
Like basically it was a dream. Wake up, get up, you know, like wake up in your unconscious mind. Wake your unconscious mind up. We are all co-creating this life, you know, together in a global community. Co-creation is, or, you know, creating your own reality takes all these archetypal forces into consideration, and then we're utilizing them for light and shadow, whatever, but it's to help guide us, to empower us into becoming our whole, like the best possible version of ourselves, bottom line.
And let me tell you, it's always a work in progress.
It is. It never ends.
It's not like school. You don't graduate. It's like you keep going forever and ever and ever and ever and ever.
Yeah. I mean, maybe when we die, you know, we I don't know what happened. I mean, I know something happens, but
I don't know. But it's an evolution of ourselves. And I think that's the best way to put it. Yeah. Because if you and I look back to when we first, you know, got together back in 2006, wow, that was so long ago. Yeah. And, you know, we have just evolved as people. Mm-hmm. And that's why we decided to do, you know, Evolve 360, because we've evolved with our life lessons, our experiences, our day-to-day grind. Because we're living here on this planet, and we all have challenges. We all have day-to-day grind, but it's the way that you go about choosing your answers to that grind, your thoughts, what you portray, even if it's one positive thing. And I try to do that because I know we're all going through a challenge. Oh. So every day I wake up and I say, you know, thank you, God, for the one thing that is going to keep me grounded and keep me moving forward. So it's an evolution. You never graduate. Yeah, and you know me, I'm like the educator in this, you know, I love education. You never get your diploma. You've got to
never get your diploma. Darn.
You never get your diploma.
That's funny. One of the things that I wanted to add to what you just said about choices, it's not necessarily the choice itself, but it's the reason behind the choices.
Yeah.
You know, the reason behind the choices that you make to do whatever it is that you do. Those are what, I guess, I can remember Carolyn talking about this. That's what, like, the powers that be, like if there's whatever out there,
right,
that's what's looking at you, however you're creating your reality. So, so when you're thinking about what's behind it, if it's negative energy, like a lot of grief, a lot of ill will towards people or towards something, blame, then whatever
And lie.
deception, manipulation, lies, any of those shadowy kind of things.
Sure. Exactly.
That's what you're creating, and that's what you're manifesting out in your world.
Mm-hmm.
If you start to come from a place of, you know, like Shelley was saying, she appreciates that one small thing or whatever that happened, you know, during the day.
We have running water in our homes. How many people don't have running water in this world?
Yeah. Still to this day, right?
Yes. Yes. Things like that. It's the tiny little, like what you said earlier in one of our other shows, Shell. It's the little mustard seed.
Yep.
That little teeny tiny seed impacts the world at a greater level. But we have to start in our world, which is the micro, and start addressing and looking into ourselves as to how we're showing up every day and where we're giving that power away. Because you have to be aware, and it's to think how you're going to react. And, you know, it was hard for me for a long time because I have that fiery, passionate, like, you know, it's my culture.
Yeah.
And it's like, I have to take a step back and not breathe and not project my tribal stuff, which is tribal, into, you know, my present situation, which, you know, I grew up in a very traditional home. And my dad was, you know, like, he ruled, and that's the way it was, and it was his word. And, you know, you had like basically no opinion. And, you know, we were like, okay, Dad, whatever you say. But then in your head, you're like, is he really for real? And I love my dad. He's awesome. He's in heaven. He's not here with us. But, you know, you got to stop and think, is that the way I want to show up with my kids? No, I don't want to be like that. So it's an evolution of who we are and how we're using our power to move us forward. Yeah.
And bottom line too, like, our power comes through the choices that we make and the reasons behind, or what is influencing them, you know, as we move forward. The other thing too, which you touched upon, was in any given situation, our power to choose, we have, say our hands are tied and we can't do it, you know, like, we always have the power to either react, like you said, or we can relate to the situation, or we can, you know, respond. And it brings to mind, I'm sure, you know, there's probably a lot of people who have read the book, but maybe some of you who haven't, by Viktor Frankl, A Man's Search for Meaning. And he was, basically a Holocaust survivor, and he observed, I mean, he was in Auschwitz. He observed how people's, being in those horrible conditions, they had no rights and they had nothing, you know, like, and the only thing that they had was their power to choose how they were going to relate to the situation or respond. And the whole concept was finding some purpose or meaning in any given situation, which you touched on too, is being appreciative of one small thing in this, you know, maybe a horrible situation. It's definitely worth a read.
That's an old book. It's
a very old book, but it catalogs, like,
I read it when I was in the university. Yes,
the disintegration of the human spirit and the disempowerment of the human spirit. And you want to talk about power and empowerment and the differences between the two. You can see it in that what was true power, and he obviously had it because he came out of it still basically a whole person, where others that were there, and even the Nazis at the time, they didn't have power. They were brutes and bullies and what have you, and that's not powerful. That and if we see that in our world, that's not true power. And if you're like that, it's not true power. The bully is bringing you up to be courageous, not to bully people. You know, it's about being a coward. You know, and the Nazis were a bunch of freaking cowards, you know, bottom line. I mean, my intense language, but but anyways, but yeah, that's like a really good, you know, a must read on empowerment and disempowerment, and how you could go in as a, you know, go into a Nazi war camp or whatever, and you're losing your power in stages. It happens in phases.
Right.
And it can potentially happen, you know, even now, like if our government doesn't open up, we're losing power. I don't see that happening. But you know, I mean, people are worried about those sorts of things, our rights being taken away slowly, like how they did back then. You know, I don't know.
But that book is a good
It is.
kind of view into your psychology. And I think I read that in one of my psych classes at the university 100 years ago. But it's remember, we all have a choice, but what is the defining action behind that choice? Are you trying to empower yourself, disempower yourself by taking somebody else's power away? So it's being aware and using your thoughts to be aware of where your power is going and how you're giving it away. And it also deals with boundaries. Having healthy boundaries is important as part of this power structure.
Yeah.
Because you have to have healthy, saying no to your girlfriend that wants you to go over and paint her house.
Definitely. The other thing about this too, it's the speed of change. This is another thing about power. I actually had something like this happen. I have a little funny story about like the speed of change. I had been like trying to manifest, I want to move to Florida, and I was envisioning like this great place to live that was near my brother, and just this great kind of lifestyle. And so
shovel snow.
So yeah, no snow. You don't have to shovel snow or whatever. And so I ended up, I was dating this guy, and then I finally had just had it with him. So I mean, I was a bad girl. I hung up on him. I was like, I just can't even do this anymore. And I just like, and then that was how it ended. That was my bad. But there was something in me. I'm like, what archetype was it? That I think it was my warrior, or somebody was protecting me, and it was like, boom, hang up. But anyways, that aside, I was just like, I'm done. I'm going to move to Florida. I booked a trip. I'm going down to see my brother, and I'm planning the big move. All right.
Okay.
And so I get down there, and the perfect, like there was a place that I could live in. Like I would have to, purchase it, but I was like, that's exactly what I wanted. It's right there. And I had girlfriends, new friends that I met right there, people to go out with right there. Like everything was like, when like stuff just lines up.
I love it.
It was magical. It was almost magical. I had like a great week, and I was actually looking for jobs and stuff, but the job thing I hadn't worked out in the plan, completely. So I felt like the speed of time, and this is where maybe my saboteur came in. It was like, I can't do this now. I got afraid because I was like, I could go home and sell my house and then maybe purchase this other home. And, the job probably might have shown up, but I was still too afraid to do it. I was terrified to do it. And that was my saboteur, because there was so many things that were in line. And I'm sure, now when I look back at it, and I was like, yeah, I just wasn't.
You weren't ready.
I wasn't ready.
You weren't ready.
No, I wasn't ready. And it wasn't like everything was like completely laid out for me, and I wanted everything laid out for me, but it's that unknown. You have to have the faith and the trust, which I didn't have.
And you got to do the work.
Yeah. And you got to do the work, but I didn't really have that at that point. And then when I came back, I was like, do I really want to move all of me down there that fast? It could have happened that fast, Shelley. And I think my saboteur kicked in and said, I'm a little scared. This is happening too fast. And I'm like, wow, I would have to change like career. It was like everything, career, everything.
Wow.
Everything.
But that happens,
Yes. And that's what's happening now to people. People are like, oh, wow, what am I going to do?
And sometimes in situations, you have to take a leap of faith.
Yeah.
You have to.
That makes me nervous. I'm like, I'm like, oh boy,
I know.
like,
it's you have to.
So you guys can see, you can feel. I mean, like I had like stuff line up, and I still couldn't do the move yet. Like I could. I was like, whoa, this is. And I'm telling you, things were right there. everything that I
Wow.
wanted. I mean, right down to the skidoos in the stall. I was like, are you kidding me, on the water?
Wow.
Like, yeah, everything that I had envisioned, everything.
But see, that's your mind working. And a lot of times when you set an intention, you set a plan,
Yeah.
things start coming in, and then we're the ones that hold ourselves back.
Yeah. So I held myself back, and I
What I do,
yeah.
what I do is I start writing things down, like the
Yeah.
pros and the cons, and you
Yeah.
know, which too, sometimes you just don't do anything because
Yeah.
you become like a, you know, you have pages and pages of notebooks with, you know, pros and cons, and
Right.
you don't get anything done.
Right.
But I think the older we get too, we tend to be a little bit more cautious. I think when we're in our 20s, I mean, when we met, we were like in our
impulsive. Yeah. Like you impulsive and you can go and do that.
we were like, let's do this. Let's jump. We did all these crazy workshops. Oh my gosh.
It was fun.
Went to all different kinds of things where today we'd probably do it, but we'd be more like analytical about it.
Oh, for sure. Yeah.
Right. So it's you involved in stages, and it's harder to disengage. But again, sometimes things come in so quickly, and you have to take a leap of faith and do it.
Yeah.
But you have to be ready to face the consequences. And that's what we talked about with your power. How are you using it? Are you using it to, you know, to be deceptive and to lie? Or are you using it to bring, you know, goodwill and pure love and grace into someone's life? Because, you know, I believe in that saying, you know, what you do will come back to you eventually. It might not happen, you know, overnight, but I just, you know, I always try to live like, you know, what you do to others, you do unto yourself. And it's important.
Oh yeah. We haven't even touched on that. Karma, your own karma, like what you put out there, man, it comes back and kicks you right in the rear end. I've been kicked a few times. I'm telling you.
Somebody comes into your life and they're to that other person, and now they're like that to you, and you're like, whoa.
Right. Right. Too funny, right? Oh my word. Oh boy. So what else? What else, lady? We had
so much.
Yeah, there's a lot on here. I know.
This is a big we're gonna have to come back to this and just do maybe a little 3-part series, but we wanted to give you a taste of power.
Yeah.
Because we all love it. We all can't live without it. And at the end, it's all about your soul. And that's what we want to talk to you about.
Yeah. Well, tapping into your spiritual power, we touched a little bit earlier on, we'll circle back to the chakra system. Right. You know, that if you're not familiar with the chakra system, it's chakra defined as a Sanskrit word for wheel. And it's a metaphor for a swirling vortex. And basically we have 7 energy centers. There's actually more than that, but 7 primary energy centers that are attached to the body, physically to the body, at the crown, third eye, throat, heart, solar plexus, belly, and at the perineum. And each of those centers are how we put out energy.
That's right.
You know, like if we love something, naturally we might make a cord attachment, like a cord. You love your baby, you know, like
again,
and ping, you got like power right there happening. You love your husband or your spouse, ping, you got cords happening of energy transpiring back and forth between you of love and connection. And these forces, and I mean, you could have like, you know, zinger from the brain. Ooh, I don't like that person or something, you know, you give them an evil eye. That's
what I want to share with everybody right now from what you just said that was so profound is think a moment about that baby, your kids or your husband that you love or your wife that you love, that person that you love. And how does that feel in your body? You just feel so, you know, warm and fuzzy and just delightfully delicious. And then think about something that really like gets you, like you give your power away to. Yeah. And how does that make you feel in your body? Because we're all exuding power. You know, it's your power. Carolyn calls it your power centers. It's your energy. It's your chakras. Yeah. And how do you feel? And you know, the first chakra is like, whoa.
No, it's all tribal.
Oh.
tribal, your connection to the earth, your connection to the group thought, you know, your connection to your family.
Going along with the tribe or with, you know,
Yeah.
you're not like ostracized, or they look at you and they're like, what? You don't belong to us, you know?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
And sometimes you have to do that to step into your own power. So it's just something that you evolve into and you have to be aware of.
Yeah, for sure. So yeah, I mean, those are areas that are really important to how you develop too as a human being. There's different stages. There's your first three, your root, and your navel and your solar plexus are all earthbound. Basically, they're all like survival, instinctual.
Safety, survival.
Yeah.
You know, self-esteem. It's all about that. The first three.
Yeah. And then after that, the ones that are above connect you to source or God. It's your heart love center, your power of will, which should be
Your
aligned
voice.
with, yeah, your voice, your creativity. Yeah.
Owning your power and just speaking up.
Yeah. And then your at your third eye, your sight, you know, like seeing things clearly. And then to your connection of being in the present moment. That's where you have power. These are all power centers. And being really aware of them and using them as a guidance system or a map. I mean, there's so much information about chakras nowadays that you can just go online and look up how it might relate to certain areas in your body and different diseases that will come up for that area if the emotions aren't in alignment. You could have, and all the types of fears that are involved in that area. It's so fascinating how the physical, like say anatomy, has its background in medicine, but then there's also this energetic anatomy that should be combined with the two, because it's so you can get so much information from it without like having to use like even like, you know, a lot of the stuff that the medical profession in this country has. You can figure out a lot. I mean, I'm not knocking it completely, you know, I'm not knocking. I think there's a place for everything, but there should be a combination, because there's a lot you can do on knowing and understanding where you're depleting your power, like your chakras bleeding energy almost. Like, you know, this is how I understand it, is like if you cut your veins and you bleed, right? If you kind of cut energy in your chakra system, you can bleed energy. And that's a loss of power, and and people don't realize that that's actually what might be happening to them. And there will be a physical manifestation in your physical body which will correspond with that lack of energy appropriately coming into your body. Yeah,
you're depleting yourself. It's fascinating. And when you join the two, and it's just, the study of this is fascinating.
Yeah.
And I did some work with Mona Lisa Schulz, and I remember when Norm Shealy used to come to our conferences and talk about that. It's just fascinating. And I experienced it myself when I was going through my divorce. My back, I just couldn't. It was dealing with my safety and my security. And then my mom died. So I had like a double whammy. And it's like my back was like in a really bad place.
Yeah, it's what's it going to cost me? Lower back. That's what that's all about.
My safety, my security, my mother that was my anchor was
gone.
So
scary. That costs a lot.
Totally, right?
Yeah.
So it's just energetically, this is how things are a lot of times, you know, working themselves in through your body. So we want you to be aware so that you can see what issues you need to deal with. And you know, at the time I had a lot of stuff that I had to deal with, and you just have to do it little by little, because at times it's overwhelming. It's, you know, you're going through grief, you're going through loss, and you just you can't, you know, it's not going to happen overnight. It took me years to get through the whole process. And that's working with, with people that were helping me, through this journey with me. But, you have to be very gentle with yourself, and you
Yeah.
have to just be patient.
Yeah.
And know that it's always a process in the making and working. We're evolving.
Every day, baby. Every day. It's a never-ending journey, for sure. So what do you say? We have anything else to talk about, or are we good?
I think we're great. I think we've talked about a lot of stuff, and we could come back to this in another episode and maybe dig a little deeper. And if you guys want to hear more about this, please let us know.
Yeah.
And because we'd love to see your reaction and what you think about what we have to say. It's really important, so we can start thinking about new shows to share with you.
Absolutely. Wow. So, brief recap of the show. Do I have it? So we basically talked about the power of choice, and really comes into play when we're creating an empowered life, right? And your saboteur, no doubt, shines that light on when you resist the opportunities to become your best possible version of yourself out of fear that things will change. I mean, my little story about going to Florida, that hit it, the nail on the head. Saboteur right there. I had everything lined up, and I'm like, oh, no, too fast. You know?
You never know. You might be coming back again soon.
Oh, well, hopefully. Definitely. Definitely. So maybe a little meditation, and we'll do a rapid power guided visualization. So this is something that you can do anywhere.
Except when you're driving.
Except when you're driving. Thank you. Except for when you're driving. So you just want to come into a comfortable seated position, close the eyes and come into your breath like we've been doing, inhaling through the nose and just following the breath as it moves down through the back of the throat into the chest, as it lifts the chest, expands the rib cage, and pull it all the way down into the belly, blowing up the belly like a balloon. And then as you exhale, the belly contracts, the balloon deflates, the rib cage drops down as the chest drops down as you exhale through slightly parted lips. So bring your awareness as you focus in on your breath, but also bring your awareness down to your toes, and just start to relax your toes and moving up through the shins and the calves, up through the quads and hamstrings. Just feel yourself relax, relaxing through the hips, the lower back, and the reproductive organs, and relaxing through the belly and the chest, feeling your shoulders drop down and away from the ears as your biceps and forearms relax all the way down to the fingertips. And feel your jaw, the back of your head, all the way up to the crown, and now to your third eye, completely relaxed. Take another deep breath in, and then exhale. And bring your awareness, drop your awareness all the way down to the root chakra between the legs, and just think of the color red. And contemplate the truth, all is one. And then as we move up the chakra system, we'll move to the navel and think of a beautiful bright orange. And then contemplate the truth, honor one another. And then moving up the chakra system to the solar plexus, think of a fiery, brilliant yellow, like a solar yellow. And hear the truth, honor thyself. And then moving up to the heart center, think of emerald green, visualize a beautiful emerald green. And here we find love is divine power. We'll bring your awareness to your throat. And we'll think of a beautiful sapphire blue just gleaming with the truth here. Surrender personal will to divine will. And we'll raise your awareness right at your brow, at your third eye, and come into a midnight sky, or an indigo color. And here the truth is, seek only the truth. And then just raise the energy to the crown of the head, where beautiful violet color crowns your head. And the truth here is, live in the present moment. Now you can bring your hands to your heart center and begin to create a friction by bringing your palms together, massaging them, and then place them over your eyes. Massage your eyes in one direction and then the other, and then press the palm in and release. The light in me sees the light in you, baby. Namaste. Yeah, that's rapid power. You start living those truths, baby, and you're going to be on your way to your authentic self.
Love it.
Yeah. So let's see. On our next show, are we going to really discuss sex and power? Whoa.
Transmutation of power, right? Yeah. Well,
okay. All right. Cool. That's the next show, you guys. So stay tuned for the Shelley Shell show. Life unplugged, raw and real. Until next time, thanks for listening.
Thanks. This is Cheli Grace.
And Shelley Devine.
See you on the next episode of 60.
Yay. All right. Bye-bye. So this episode was sponsored by Evolve Bootcamp, a functional fitness program that delivers a sense of warmth, friendliness, and spirit, along with butt-kicking, hellishly fun-filled workouts that embody a caring attitude. Class begins at 6 a.m. Monday, Wednesday, Friday, now on Zoom. And mention this podcast so you can try out a trial class if you dare to evolve. You can find us at evolvebootcamp.com.
And this episode is sponsored by Power Up Performance, and we have an online platform that we've now gone totally virtual on presentation, communication. If you want to magnetize your clients, create action, and bring profits online through the power of communication, and words are charged with energy. So are you using the right words? Well, if you're not, we're here to help. So you can follow us on cheligrace.com. And we also have a Facebook group, which is Transition 5 Online. So join us so that we can share your words with the world.